Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and with me in the Rabbit Hole studio today, he is the writer and executive producer of the documentary The Infamous Future. We've had him on the show before, not on this show, but we interviewed him recently, so you can check that out. But here to get down into the nitty-gritty with us about The Infamous Future and about filmmaking, Mr. John Campbell. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you again.
It's great to see you, my friend. So thank you for coming. We always appreciate when people schlep to Brooklyn, and I know you have to go soon because you're off to a screening pretty soon. So we want to know all about. We want to talk about you and Infamous Future. First thing I want to do is kind of talk about you and your background and how you sort of got into this mess, into the whole filmmaking thing. So what is your origin story, so to speak? How did you become involved in filmmaking?
My origin is I was born and raised in London. I was born in Paddington, grew up in a small town called Kensal Rise, skipping to moving to America. I actually first went to Atlanta, and from Atlanta, I then moved to New York. I was only in Atlanta for about 2 years. And whilst living in New York City, I was actually working for Citigroup, the financial institution. And whilst there, I kind of got involved in philanthropy and getting involved in art and other creative things, and was given an opportunity to work with a couple of people in the film industry, actors, directors, and writers and producers. And that kind of got me really keen and intrigued in the entire filming industry. And whilst doing that, I met an amazing director by the name of Richard Butterworth. And Richard was kind of intrigued in looking into something that was really passionate. And I said to him that I had an idea about doing a documentary on education in New York. That's kind of how The Infamous Future came about. We actually started with a different type of documentary, which was really more so talking about the issues. Mm-hmm. So we went to NYU, we went to a student from Fordham, University of Massachusetts, and a few other places. But I was then introduced to the amazing Mr. David Banks, who is the CEO of the Eagle Academy Foundation. And I walked into the building, and the first thing he said to me was, "I have the greatest story that has never been told." And of course, to him, it's just another thing he says. But to me, that was breathtaking, right? So I decided...
You got your tagline for the film right then and there, man.
Exactly.
It's like ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
You know, there's very few instances in life when that happens to you creatively. But what a way to sell it, man.
Oh, my goodness. So I literally, my breath was taken. And I decided, after spending a little time around him, that we needed to tell a positive story about education. And something that really is one of the highlights of what's happening in New York. And that's how the story kind of turned from it being about the issues to it being about a solution.
For those who haven't seen our coverage of it so far, those who haven't seen my talk with you, what is the film about? Like, what if you had to summarize it, what is The Infamous Future about?
So The Infamous Future is really showing how when people come together to really believe and work for the greater good, that we can achieve success. So Eagle Academy Foundation, which was founded with 100 black men, is an organization that goes into some of the most challenging neighborhoods in New York to find these black and brown boys and create success from an educational perspective for these young men to then kind of go on and do more for their lives and have more opportunities. So that really is what the premise of the documentary is. It's really kind of showing what Eagle Academy is able to achieve just from people in the community and organizations that supports the Eagle Academy Foundation, what they can actually achieve.
I thought it was an interesting film. I had the opportunity to see a screening of it through Contra Film Series, and we had Joffrey Guerrero on the show as well, and I've covered Contra and Bowery Film Festival. But so there's a couple of interesting challenges that I can see with that. Like when you're making a documentary, it's very hard, I think, to do that and not feel like you're just making a piece of propaganda.
Right.
You know, like you don't want a 45-minute commercial.
Right.
kind of thing, and you also don't. So you have to kind of you have to use all the colors in the paint box. You can't just
Right.
paint it. It's everything sunny, because you have to show the challenges, and in any good film you have to have conflict of some
Right.
kind. What I liked about the film was that you had one particular child that you came, who was a success story,
Yeah.
come out of there, and this kid, normally people in his name. Tell me his name again.
Joshua Perez.
Joshua
He's from the
Perez,
Bronx.
and he seems like a great kid.
Yeah.
But usually, he comes from a single parent household,
Yep.
not a lot of money. His mom didn't finish school.
Yep.
It didn't look like he was going to finish school. And these are kind of the kids that nobody wants to teach. And a kid like that in New York City back in the day, he's supposed to be a statistic.
Correct.
But you follow him, and you get to his story specifically,
Yes.
which really humanizes it, because
Yeah.
you can't make a movie about a building,
Right. Right.
What was the thing? How did you find him? Like, how was that? How did you guys say that's the one that we want to talk about, kind of thing?
So, first of all, there are so many amazing students at Eagle Academy. I love the way, first, how many schools do you go to where you can walk down the hallway and you can hear yourself? Normally, it doesn't matter what the school is in, it doesn't matter what the race. There's normally just a lot of noise in the hallways at schools, right?
Chaos.
Yeah. Eagle Academy, I'm walking down and I'm saying to the director, I could hear myself, I just love the way that these kids are really supportive of each other, respectful to what Eagle Academy stands for. And so it wasn't difficult. It really wasn't difficult. But there was something about Joshua that was inspiring to me, right? That he didn't carry his challenges. He held up his goals and his aspirations. That was everything to him. He did not live in the present saying, I don't have this, we don't have that as a family, and here are my issues. He said, okay, I know that I have that, but, here's where I'm going. This is what I'm going to do. And I love that about this guy.
It's a very positive film as a result, and you don't see that much anymore. And like we've talked about it, I've talked about it with on the Indie Film News episode. We were talking about and I asked you when I was at the screening about kind of people of color in media, and what's happened.
Absolutely.
And I talked about, I asked about movies like Black Klansman and Black Panther, and we literally going from what was a couple of years ago, the hashtag Oscars so white,
right,
to literally having two movies in the best nominated films with the word black in the title.
Correct.
And kind of how that's affected things. And one of the things that my co-host pointed out, he said, when you look at a movie like that, he said it was one of the first films that I saw where you saw people of color being the answer to their own problems.
Absolutely.
You don't see that a lot in media. And I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective about your film as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know the politics of it. I think I don't want to kind of get into that, because there's a whole battle between public schools and charter schools.
Yeah.
And also, this school is essentially... it's segregated because it's boys only, and it tends to be just people of color, which you can't do legally. I don't think. You can't segregate schools. So I don't know how they were able to.
I definitely can't get into or answer all of that. But this was deliberate. Eagle Academy was the first all-boys school. All right. But, you have to take in consideration that, as you rightly said, these kids coming from these neighborhoods, there's a dictatorship that's already out there about them, which is, I think, unfair. And it is inhuman. It is not the way that we should be living, right? So Eagle Academy says we are going to do something about this. And I think that that's important. When you think about civil rights and movements, think about how people came together for the greater good, right? And that's what's happening here. And it shouldn't be ending anytime soon. This should be going for the rest of our lives.
The only thing that I thought was missing is, and maybe it's just not there yet, but public education has gotten worse since like I was a kid in this country.
Yeah.
And, I would love to see some of this same philosophy applied toward every school.
Yeah.
No matter who's there.
Right.
Because, and I said to you as well, like in terms of like when you guys get distribution, like people in Omaha need to see this movie.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just here.
No.
And what I, in terms of the filmmaking though, because this is a filmmaking show, but like in terms of that, like how hard was this movie to make when you got into it? Like, did you guys did it, some documentaries take years? Did it take, how long were you guys actually out there in the field shooting, and how did you bring it together?
My director, Richard Butterworth, I met him, I think it was June or July of 2017. We met again, I think in August. We started filming in September.
Wow.
It was that clear that we wanted to do this. We both wanted to do this. And even to the fact that 6 months into filming, well, maybe a bit less, we changed everything. Because it was probably about September we started. By January, we were starting on Eagle Academy.
So it was one of those, and this happens a lot. This is a lesson for any of you doc makers out there. Sometimes you start out making one thing, and then a whole other story presents itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's great that you had like the like sort of the intuition to say, no, that's it.
Because the thing is, what you really want is not just the truth, but you want the passion as well. And I think sometimes that you could be filming something and you're going in one direction, but then something sparks and then you realize that that's greater. You have to be open to that. You have to be able to say, I need to make a switch here because there's something that's more important than what I wanted to originally say.
It's something special.
Yeah.
How do you know? So by January, you're like, all right, this is the doc. This is what we're going to do.
Yes.
And then how long are you like sort of crafting a story and getting interviewed? Like how long are you in the process from January then?
Literally every single week, at least sometimes 3 to 5 days. It depends on how intense, the scheduling of the school is, because I'm dealing with the educators, I'm dealing with the principals, I'm dealing with Eagle Academy Foundation, I'm dealing with the students, I'm dealing with the parents. And then you also have to have your own meetings with production.
Sure.
And really try to get, is this making sense? What direction are we going in? And, for me, I'm trying to put these questions together that really tell the right story, that makes sense and allows me to get the information from the people that I'm speaking with. And that's also a great contributor to getting the story all together.
That could be a whole podcast in and of itself in terms of interviewing and things like that. Like just trying to figure out what you need to hear from people and not be biased, but you're telling a story.
Yeah.
Every documentary's got a perspective, and you need to sort of like you want to find the cases that fit your argument for whatever you're doing, but still not like I said, make propaganda. So you're trying not to like filter out the negative,
right?
But you're trying to say, okay, let me give a 360-degree realistic depiction.
Absolutely.
Which is why you talked to the head of the school, but you didn't just talk to the head of the school.
No.
You talked to parents, you talked to teachers,
Absolutely.
you talked to other people in that community.
And then you have to edit.
Yeah.
And get rid of most of what you have.
How long was that process for you?
Well, I can tell you that the director, Richard Butterworth, he handled the editing in terms of really putting the concepts together. We would have several meetings and talk about it, and we would go back and forth. But it took, I would say, about a month to a month and a half of back and forth.
Now, in docu years, that is incredibly short.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a chip shot for a documentary.
Oh, absolutely.
Because some people, it's like, well, I spent 5 years on this. I spent 7 years trying to make this doc.
Well, first of all, this dude is incredible. Excuse me, he's phenomenal as a director and as an editor. It was great to have him because at that time, he was able to kind of juggle and shuffle his own time with his job so that he could get this done. So he really gave a lot of sacrifice and time and attention to it.
And for you, where was this in terms of your career, in terms of like producing? And so, have you ever did you ever produce a documentary before?
No, this is my first documentary.
It's different, right?
Oh, very different.
Yeah.
Very different. And it's not like being on the set of a film, right? Or television. You have to stick with this. And and at that time, I had one of my clients had a movie coming out with Samuel Goldwyn, A Boy, a Girl, a Dream. The client is Qasim Basir.
Cool.
And I'm also an associate producer on that. And so he had his film coming out, but at the same time, I was producing the March on Washington Film Festival in D.C.
Oh, wow.
Which was a 10-day film festival. I also had 2 other clients and, just several projects all going at the same time as I'm trying to really get this film done. So you can imagine the sacrifices on a weekly basis, being in Washington, D.C. every week for 7-8 months, and then being in New York City and arranging my time around it. It was heavy.
And this was kind of your baby, though, because you're the writer behind it, and it felt like you had a special connection to it as well.
Definitely.
And that makes a difference. Like if you have the passion for a project, you tend to get it done. You know?
That's absolutely very true. I think there's a couple of things. First of all, Richard and I really both felt a very intense passion for this conversation. I think for me, of course, I can identify more because I'm a black man, and I think that was critical.
For those of you just listening and we're wondering.
Yeah, right. For me, that was really important because I don't think a person who is not African American or black, if you want to say black, or Latino, that doesn't have certain challenges on a daily basis, whether it's news in the media, some of the things that are beaten into your system, into your psyche, about who you are. And that's challenging. Just wearing that on your shoulders each day is challenging. So we were very proud to kind of tell a positive story about black and brown boys and about people of color and what is happening here that's really good.
I think it's probably, it's arguable to say who is the more vilified in media. I know that when I was growing up, which is a while back now, but, you had like Dirty Harry movies and stuff like that. And, the black, Latino, they were always the street kid. They were always the thug. I made a movie and I interviewed my actor about it on the show called Thug Number 3.
Oh, wow.
And it's about a young black actor who's dealing with being cast as in the role of Thug Number 3.
Wow.
And, and the thing is, like, I wrote that film talking to him because he's a total sweetheart.
Right.
But I just asked him, I said, what do you usually get cast as? He's like, well, I played, a criminal, a drug dealer, gangsta, and I was like, well, and at this point, it's like, do you embrace that and just play those roles, or do you try to do something else?
Yeah.
And with this, it was nice to see something that it's a true story. It's a documentary about people improving themselves without having that, like, because before you had movies like Dangerous Minds, or you had like sort of the classic the white teacher comes into the bad neighborhood,
absolutely,
and
correct.
The inspiring part about that is the head of the school coming in and saying, listen, you guys are up against it, and this is what you face every day, and we're going to make it better.
Absolutely,
but you're still going to have those challenges.
Absolutely,
kind of thing.
Absolutely, and I think it's important. I
think
it's
absolutely.
really important for people to understand your situations around you in terms of where you live, your financial background, even not having much education. It's not a dictatorship, all right? It's something for you to rise up and challenge yourself and kind of see, what can I do? How can I overcome?
What do you think about, like, so say you were, a young filmmaker, say you're a filmmaker of color, for instance, and you want to tell one of these stories, you want to make a doc.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give somebody looking to jump into this, or maybe move from more fictional narrative stuff for television into this kind of doc world.
Right.
What would you say to somebody? You could look right there as if you were going to talk to them.
So the first thing I would say is if you're really trying to do a documentary, you want to figure out whether it's going to be a short or a feature length. All right. A short in most cases would be anywhere between 5-10 minutes to 30 to 40 minutes. And a feature length is going to probably be over 45-50 minutes. You then want to think about the locations. You want to think about the people that would be involved, the topics, because all of these things are either time, money, or both. Right? You then want to think about how can you get some help, because unless you have money or you have someone who wants to invest, you have to start working on a budget. There are some, on Google, you can find, I think SAG has them, and I think Sundance has them, and a few other websites has Excel sheets where some are blank, some have been, are as examples. But it's important for you to see those things and get an idea of what you're going to have to pay for. Another thing you should do is consider some of the things around you. Every person in every city in the country has a council person. Council persons, mayors' offices, they all have budgets that are to support arts and things for the community. You put a proposal together, you can potentially get some money. I know friends that I've shared that with have actually gotten support financially, right? You then also want to make sure that you get a team, get some friends that might be able to help you on production. But you want to cut some corners as well. And you can cut corners by if you know someone in the industry that may know a team of producers. Get some people, if you haven't done it before, to show you how it's done and give them a credit as being a producer or executive producer. So those are some of the first things. There's lots of organizations online. One of the best is Impact Partners and what they do in funding films, helping you from a current or post position on your film.
Excellent. We actually had Jose Rodriguez on the show. He's from Tribeca Film Institute, and he heads up the doc program there.
Excellent.
Which is a great program for people that I don't think enough people know about. I was not aware of the program that you just mentioned, Impact Partners.
Yes, Impact Partners has over 70 films, many which have done incredibly well from Sundance right through the entire year. And you'll see their films on Netflix and HBO and many other streaming networks. But they have been very good at supporting different communities, so it doesn't matter what the topic is. If there is something there, they will at least give you feedback, or they'll give you support.
That's awesome, man. And that's the kind of stuff that people listen to the show for, hopefully. And for someone like you, I mean, so you've got some projects coming up.
Yes.
You said before we rolled, you said you're working on a TV series.
Correct.
You can't really talk about it.
Cannot just yet. Not
but that's great.
Yes.
Can you say where it's going to be or anything like that?
It will be based in Detroit.
Okay.
And it will, be.
And this is a fictional narrative series or a doc series?
This is a TV series. This
Okay.
is an actual series, so it's not a documentary. And that's as much as I can say on that subject right now.
That's okay. We'll look out for it. So, as I always tell people, when you have projects, send me a press release, and then we'll talk about it on the show.
Absolutely.
When we do indie film news. But I would say, is there something that for you that you personally took away from this experience that you would say was worth it for you? Not just either because people do projects for different reasons. Either artistic, you learn something, you find, but to me this sounds like something that affected you.
Oh, definitely.
What was the thing that you took away from it?
I think that the thing for me that was really critical was that I was humbled, and I felt like I needed to follow what was being told to me. And this story really was something that was being told to me, and it really has inspired my life to making sure that I contribute something good. Not just to a community, but to my race. Make sure that I am kind of being a servant and supporting things that's really going to uplift people and show them that we can do this too,
I think that's great. And I've had similar experiences just kind of meeting people and working on the show about, because this whole thing is to give back to filmmakers and hopefully give that to the indie film community. We're going to wrap up shortly, but is there anything else that you want to brag about in terms of upcoming projects, or do we know we can't say where we're at on distribution with this film just yet?
Not just yet. It's coming. It's coming very soon.
Let us know about that.
We're
as
in
well.
a very good space with that, so we're just definitely going to let that pan out.
Do you see it more as was the wish for more of a theatrical release, or were you looking for like TV streaming kind of thing?
No, the intention is really for this to be TV streaming, but we definitely will continue to do a few premieres around New York and in other places. But for me, I think the thing that I want people to give more time and attention to with this film is, we have a great website.
I was just going to ask you, where can we find it on the web?
www.theinfamousfuture.com. And we're also on Twitter, which is @TIFDocu. And on Instagram, we are The Infamous Future.
Thanks so much. And I'm going to wrap up, but definitely keep us posted,
Absolutely.
and we'll keep the audience posted on where they can find this. Definitely check out the website. They've got a great trailer and some behind the scenes there. And if you're in the New York City area and you can catch a screening, definitely check it out, because it's a really moving, very effective, beautiful film, and you should be very proud.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to tell you that The Infamous Future, the title, the reason why I chose that title was really to kind of show a positive from a negative. The word infamous comes from the Greek word, which is negative. And I wanted to show what in society is being called a negative. I wanted to show a positive. I just wanted to mention that as well.
No, that's great, and it's very fitting, because it's very very fitting title, and it's a grabber too, which I like. That it's one of those titles that when I got the invite, I was like, "What the hell is this movie about?" It's got a great, it's got one of those curious things, and I think you guys will get some good distribution. Hopefully, we'll see this, and then when you do, just let me know. We'll tell the audience about it. Anyway,
question.
I'm gonna wrap up. Thanks for coming. And I'm going to thank you all out there for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more episodes of this show and for our other coverage of Infamous Future and the Bowery Film Festival, et cetera, look at our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. You can also find us on all of the major podcast channels, including Anchor, Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you listen to stuff. Please remember to like, rate, and subscribe. And once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Mr. John Campbell.
Thank you so much for having me.
For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.